You're someone with a vision for your practice, for your side hustle, and for your personal journey. But when it comes to establishing your path on how to get to where you want to be with your practice, things get a little messy. You're also someone who'd prefer to go in person instead of to groups and listening to everyone else's story. To me, it sounds like you could benefit from one on one consulting with our experienced practice of the practice consultants. From $5.95 a month and up, you can work with a consultant that will give you more direction and practical, tried and tested tips matched to you and your goals. For more information, visit practiceofthepractice.com/apply. Again, that's practiceofthepractice.com/apply. This is the Practice of the Practice podcast with Joe Sanok, session number 1380.
Welcome to the Practice podcast. I'm Melissa Schneider, LCSW, and I'll be your host today. We're going to be digging into why most solo practices struggle financially and talking about 5 keys to make sure that your solo practice thrives. So, I want to kick us off today with a strange but true fact. Therapists love being in solo practice, and most don't earn very much. Let me say that again. Therapists love being in solo practice, and most don't earn very much. If that's surprising to you, you're not alone. Now, for those who don't know me, I'm one of our consultants here at the Practice of the Practice. I started in solo myself years ago. I then founded a mega group practice in New Jersey that grew to 65 plus therapists, and a boutique out of network practice that grew out of that. Earlier this year, I closed on the sale of both practices, joining forces with a large national mental health company. So I've seen the gamut of private practice business models, from solo to big. I feel I have the pulse of the huge forces shaping our industry currently, pushing us deeper into consolidation. And I believe that solo providers in particular will be delivering a larger and larger percentage of the total psychotherapy services nationwide in the coming years. At the end of the day, I want us, the therapists, taking care of millions of Americans, to win and to thrive as our industry moves into the future. So, I've been a bit obsessed with solo practice finances for almost 2 years now. And I'm going to hit the highlights of what I've learned here with you today. We've had an industry myth afoot for decades now that you'll probably recognize. The myth is that therapists always do better leaving their group practice to go solo. The myth is so deeply ingrained in our therapist world that few people even think to question it. But something doesn't quite add up. How could a bunch of tiny businesses do better when each one has to pay costs that would certainly be lower if shared? And how are all of those providers getting enough clients when it's tough even for sophisticated groups with big marketing budgets to fill their openings? To get to the bottom of what's actually happening out in solo practice land and to understand what solo therapists actually earn, I've spent some time interviewing specialized accountants, going to conferences, reading the new industry reports just starting to emerge with trends and facts about the state of solo practice finance. Also drawn on my experiences building solo and group practices. I've spoken on the topic, and I've even talked to certain CEOs into letting me access raw data not yet available to the public. Along the way, I've come to the strange conclusion I mentioned a moment ago. Therapists love being in solo practice, and most don't earn very much. Let's break that down. First, people are really satisfied out in solo practice land. I mentioned these recent industry reports being published on the state of solo practice finances. Both Herd, an accounting and bookkeeping service for therapists, and Simple Practice, an EMR for therapists, published these reports, and both agree that 85% or more of solo providers are very satisfied with their career choice. and just over 10% don't plan to continue their solo practice to the end of the year, meaning that about 90% plan to keep doing what they're doing. And I would say that jives with what I've observed anecdotally from the therapists who had exited my group practice to go solo over the years. More than 90% are still out in the solo practice that they left to start. So people are really satisfied in solo. That much is clear. And that's great news. At the same time, most solo therapists also don't earn very much. Hurd's 2026 Financial State of Private Practice report, which just came out last month, found that the median solo practice therapist earns just $53,000 a year. That's revenue minus expenses equals $53,000. Then they have to pay taxes, 25 to 35% in taxes, leaving them with $35,000 or less in disposable income, which is under $3,000 a month to actually spend on like bills and savings and investing. Now, I was shocked to learn this because 100% of the full-time therapists working at my group practice would earn more than $53,000 a year, even like a first year, fresh out of college. And they also get benefits and a 401k and professional community to boot. I also don't want you to forget that $53,000 is just the median for annual earnings. So that means that half of solo therapists are earning less. Now, of course, not every person in solo practice is aiming for a full-time job, but I think that many people would be happy to go solo fully if their solo practice was growing. For many people, it's a side gig, and it shouldn't be. My friends, I want solo providers to have both. I want you to be super satisfied with your career choice and all the independence and freedom it brings, and I want you earning well. Being a therapist needs to support your real life for decades, right? Bills, savings, investment, raising kids or a fur baby if you want to, planning for retirement, taking time off every year. I care about our industry, and of course, selfishly, I want my own therapist to love her job and have a thriving practice so she'll be here for years to come. And I'm not alone. Many of us have an amazing therapist who deserves not to scrape by, but to be comfortable in life and to feel empowered in solo practice. And that's what I want for you today. So let's go to those 5 keys. Let me tell you where we're going. We're going to first talk about reverse engineering your business before you open. Secondly, choosing the business model that earns the income you need. Third, being realistic about how many sessions you can do in a year in solo practice. Fourth, remembering to design a practice that gives clients what they want. And fifth, don't do solo alone. Let's dive in. So, key number 1 is reverse engineer the business before you open. So before you design your website, before you think about branding, before you download Joe's amazing free 28-step checklist to opening a private practice, which you can find on our website, start with your target earnings in mind. What life do you want your solo practice to fund? How much do you need to take home every year to spend on rent, on groceries, on student loans, to put into savings, to put into investments, to contribute to retirement and health insurance, to travel, to have fun? Let's get your number. Let's say, for example, you need $4,000 a month to pay your bills comfortably, that you'd like to make $1,000 a month that you can invest or save or put in your retirement fund. Plus, you want $10,000 a year for travel and fun money. So that in this example would be $48,000 plus $12,000 plus $10,000 equals $70,000. This is the disposable income you want your solo practice to produce. So now we have a clear goal to start with. Key number 2 follows right along. The second key is to choose the business model that will earn you the income you chose in step number 1. For the next point, I want to give a shout out to Julie Harris, CEO of Green Oak Accounting. If you missed my interview with her back in April, check out episode 1365. Julie helped me break down take-home pay for solo therapists into what you get from a single session fee. But then she told me that many therapists kind of focus too much on that dollar amount they'll get to keep per session because it looks so much higher than what maybe they're making in their group practice. But they don't think about how many total sessions they'd need to deliver a year to meet their earning goals. So Julie's advice was to zoom out, start with your annual income goal, and then focus on how many total sessions you'd need to provide. Okay, so I promised a short crash course in solo practice finance along the way, and we have arrived. I'm going to give you a couple of facts from these industry reports that are going to help us make basic assumptions. So first, independent solo practitioners delivered over 113 million sessions in 2025, which is pretty amazing. 48% of solo providers use platforms like Headway or Alma, which doesn't surprise me. 75% accept at least one insurance. And of all the sessions provided across the country by solo clinicians, 60% were in-network. In-network care for many people is where the client volume is going to be. The average in-network rates collected ranged from 100 to 110. So that means like in-network, you're taking insurance, while the average out-of-network or self-pay rate collected was about 140. And therapists everywhere spend 22% or more of their revenue on expenses to run the business. Okay, so now for that crash course in solo finances. And don't worry, I have a calculator I'm going to put in the show notes that you can use. So let's walk through the math. And if you hate math, just tune out for 60 seconds. Let's go for it. So if your disposable income goal is $70,000 a year, you're going to need to bring in a little more than twice that amount, or about $142,000 in gross revenue. Now, gross revenue is just an accounting word that means every dollar you collect from providing services. According to those industry reports, you're likely to collect an average of $110 a session for in-network. So that's like after some clients don't pay, after some credit cards decline, after maybe an insurance plan gives you issues. And maybe you'll collect $120 a session if you have some private pay clients in your practice and some insurance. So to generate $140,000 in that top line revenue to allow you to spend that $70,000, you're going to need to provide 1,200 to 1,300 sessions a year, or about 27 sessions a week. So what happened there? How do we get from earning $140,000 down to only having $70,000 to spend? The answer, in short, is expenses and taxes. So let's walk through it. So first, you're going to spend about 25% of that revenue that you bring in just to run the business. Rent, insurance, fees, Wi-Fi. There's like 20 things you have to pay for to run a solo practice. So after you've done that, that brings you down to about $106,000. Then you're going to pay anywhere between 25 to 35% in taxes. So let's break that down. Right, so everyone's going to need to pay that 15.3% in self-employment taxes. That covers things like Social Security and Medicare and Medicaid. So after you've done that, you'd have about $90,000 left. Then, if you're kind of modeling a W-2 scenario in your mind, you can cut yourself a biweekly paycheck of about $3,400. You get to keep that. And then every quarter, you're going to make those estimated tax payments. So you're going to spend about 22% in federal and state income taxes. And after you've done that, you're going to get down to that disposable income, about $5,800 a month in this scenario, which adds up over the course of the year to about $70,000 in disposable income. So a basic rule of thumb is however much you need to spend on your life, you're going to need to bring in about 2x that amount in gross revenue. That's a good takeaway. Okay, so key number three. Key number three is be realistic about the sessions that you can do in a year. So I want to go back to that example from a moment ago. The business model that would create $70,000 a year in disposable income, that was going to require that you provide 27 sessions a week, or 12 to 1,300 sessions a year. I want to underscore this expectation and just state a truth. The vast majority of solo therapists do not deliver 1,200 to 1,300 sessions a year. The vast majority don't even deliver 1,000 sessions a year, not even close. The Simple Practice Industry Report found that the median solo therapist completed about 12 sessions a week over a 48-week year. The 75th percentile, meaning like if you got 100 therapists, 75 or fewer, were delivering 17 a week or less.
A year from today, what would your dream private practice look like? Would you spend less time chasing claims or only working with clients who value your skill set? What if you had a network to reach out to for questions or free continuing ed? What if you had more time for yourself? Alma empowers you to confidently accept insurance backed by an all-in-one EHR that simplifies scheduling, documentation, and day-to-day practice operations. With a network of engaged providers and free CE resources, Alma makes it easy for you to build the practice of your dreams on your terms. Alma believes that when therapists get the support they need, mental health care gets better for everyone. Learn more about Alma at helloalma.com/Joe. Your dream practice is closer than you think. Get started now at helloalma.com/Joe. That's helloalma.com/Joe.
So let's recap on what we know, right? We know that 80% solo providers report that they're open to taking new clients, which tells me that most people don't feel full. Heard also found that marketing, getting clients, is the number one hardest thing about going solo. Both reports agreed that the average therapist in solo practice wasn't providing more than 18 sessions a week, even if you went with the higher average that Heard found, which is only going to add up to maybe 600 to 800 sessions a year over a 48-week year. So if you have a business in mind that would require delivering 27 sessions a week, 48 weeks a year, and the vast majority of your peers are delivering 17 or less, then you would need an extremely aggressive marketing approach. You would need an extremely aggressive calendar. And even still, I would not expect to generate that much income in year one. I would expect to build up to that level of income by year two with a lot of consistent hard work. To have that $70,000 to spend, you would need to carry a full caseload and have a busy solo practice. And to do that, you'll either need to be taking several insurances, or you'll need to have a savvy marketing plan, a very in-demand specialty, and probably 15 plus after hours, evening or weekend appointments. So that brings me to key number 4, which is design a practice that gives clients what they want. I have to say, for all of the podcasts and conferences and settings I go to about designing a private practice, people rarely say, hey, let's start by thinking what we know clients are looking for and design the practice that gives them that, right? Most of us are trying to design a lifestyle business that gives us the schedule that we're hoping for. So I'm going to push back a little bit on that to say, I want you to build a smart, effective business. And then when you're full and profitable and hitting all of your goals, you can kind of backpedal into a cushier schedule. So designing a practice that gives clients what they want. It's 2026 and we're coming up to summer. If you want to gain more than 1 or 2 new clients a week, you'll need to offer in-person options. You'll need to have at least 10 weekly appointments after 4 or on weekends, and you'll need to offer easy online booking. Now, probably most of you, if you're in the field, you will intuitively know that those 3 things would work to fill availability more quickly. So I'm not going to make a strong case on why those things are important. I'm going to talk about the business side of these offerings, just to give you some ideas. So in-person options. So it's important to have access to an office where you can see your clients in person, but I would say it is not smart to pay for the rent on an office that is all yours. In-person options. It's important to have access to an office where you can see your clients in person. I would say it's not smart in 2026 to launch a fully virtual practice unless you're very niche or you have an amazing marketing plan or a reason that you know it would work. If you go virtual only, you are competing with thousands of providers across your state doing the same things through platforms like Alma or Headway or Growth Therapy, or just through their own online marketing. Whereas when you offer in-person appointments, you're just competing to stand out from the other offices in town. It's you versus maybe like 50 or 100 therapists, maybe 1,000 if you're in a huge city. I want you to think about which odds sound better to you. I think it's important to have an office these days, but I would not recommend that you rent an office just for you. Make sure you're sharing the rent. Nobody can use an office 7 days a week, 12 hours a day, nor should you. But an office space can be utilized at that volume. So either share the rent with 2 or 3 other providers and coordinate schedules, or book by the hour as needed at a co-working space like a Regis or Industrious. Or maybe you sublet 4 to 8 hours a week from a therapist who has space to share. A physical office gives you a lot of online assets. You can build a completely free Google My Business profile and get a lot of referrals through that. You can have SEO and GEO working for you. You can tap into local organic searches. All of that is super important. Moving on to the business side of evening and weekend hours. Now, these hours are at a premium. We all know that. They're definitely going to fill more quickly. But could you monetize that demand? So if you're used to taking insurance in network, it feels like you kind of can't monetize anything, right? You just get the rate that you get. But I would say that you have other options as a solo provider if you're just taking a few insurances. So let's say that you are credentialed with 2 insurances, maybe Cigna and Blue Cross. So what you could do is make most appointment times available to all your clients, insurance, out of network, but maybe you reserve the especially popular times like your 6 and 7 p.m. slot to just out of network clients. And maybe you charge $200 a session for that prime time spot. Maybe it's $220, $250. To be clear, those clients would not have Cigna or Blue Cross. You can't take Cigna from some folks and be out of network with others. But these would be clients that have something else. Aetna, AmeriHealth, United. Hopefully they also have out-of-network coverage, and then they'll probably get a lot of your feedback through reimbursements as well. But this could be a way to monetize the demand for this primetime spot. I also want you then to think back to that average we talked about, the average fee collected being $110 a session. So let's say that you did what I just described and added 6 appointments a week where you're now getting $200 a session instead of $110, and the other 21 appointments stay in network, stay at $110. You'd boost your average collected fee up to $130 a session. That means instead of having to provide 27 sessions a week to meet your goals, you could provide 22. You'd still generate that $140,000 that you need to create $70,000 to spend. Now, I don't know about you, but doing 22 sessions a week instead of 27 sounds really attractive. The last part of this, thinking about the business side of designing a successful practice, is offering easy online booking. According to those handy-dandy industry reports, only 60% of practices offer online booking. People, it is 2026. This stat just shocks me every time. If only 60% of people are doing this simple, free thing, please make sure that you are one of them. This should be available in your EMR. If it's not, get a Calendly account, put a button on your website, and make it possible. When I talk to therapists who aren't turning on online booking, they're not doing it for 2 reasons. First, they just haven't got around to figuring out the tech side of it, and it doesn't seem super important to them. They don't mind their admin person taking calls, emails, people filling out forms. Or they have a worry that if they just let clients book online, then they're going to have to serve clients who aren't a good fit or that they just don't like. Here's my pitch. I think this caution about the clients that you'll get if you open up online booking is misplaced and doesn't make good business sense. It is perfectly ethical to offer to do an intake session, to use that meeting to assess your client's symptoms, presenting problem, needs, to think about a treatment plan, and to be able to articulate whether you have the skills needed to help them, whether you're the right therapist. You can always assess, conclude that you are not the right fit, and refer out. Most insurances also pay more for the intake session because of this process you're going through. So it's another argument in favor of using online booking, maybe meeting 1 or 2 clients out of 20 that won't be the right fit, making good referrals. You can make the purpose of that first meeting super clear in your intake paperwork or your reminder text messages. You can open with a little blurb in your session, your housekeeping spiel. You can be confident that clients understand that they're meeting you so that you can figure out if you're the right fit. But do not avoid online booking because you're afraid that once in a while you'll have a client who really wants to see you and you're just not the right fit. Instead, find that out in the intake while you're getting a higher session fee, enjoy your full calendar along the way, and pay your admin team a little less. Key number 5, last and probably most importantly, don't do solo practice alone. Those industry reports are crystal clear. Therapists are trying to do too much of the business side on their own, very often with no training whatsoever. Simple Practice reports that 43% of providers have 0 hours of formal business training, and hardly any had more than 60 hours of formal business training. Heard found that 54% of people name things like taxes and keeping financially organized as the biggest business headaches, and 1 in 3 people are still doing their bookkeeping on a spreadsheet, which I do not recommend. So, in other words, a lot of us did not learn anything about running a business in grad school. I'm sure you've heard that old saw. And we're trying to teach ourselves or just figure it out. Figure out things like business taxes, bookkeeping, pricing, marketing, operations without basic fundamentals. And that's not the best way to build something important that is meant to support you. So this tip is decide how you will learn about the business of solo practice. There are so many ways to accomplish this. You can read a book on launching your private practice and running it successfully. You can take a course. These are often offered by consultants or people who've done it themselves. You can work with an accountant who works with therapy practices, set up monthly meetings, ask all your questions. You could join a mastermind group of solo practice providers facilitated by a master solo practitioner. There's so many ways to get this support. Many cities offer a small business development corporation or office, often funded by the local government. These places give free and low-cost support to business owners. I got free business coaching at something like this in the early days. You can often find this kind of support at a local MBA program as well. Talk to people who are a few years ahead of you or who know how to run a business. Go to a networking group, a peer support group. Do not invent the whole thing from scratch. We do offer this kind of support at Practice of the Practice, and this is a genuine plug. I am not getting paid extra to tell you this. I genuinely wish I had known that such communities existed when I started my solo practice and then my group. The number of mistakes I made, the time I wasted, oh my goodness. We have a membership community called the Practice Academy here at Practice of the Practice. You'll join a membership community of solo and group practice owners. We have a closed Facebook group-like thing called Circle. You can ask questions and talk to people. You can go to live weekly trainings with consultants like me. You can watch recorded courses. There's tip sheets, there's calculators, and it's not expensive. You can be part of this kind of membership community for $200 a month on average. Maybe it's something you do for 6 months or a year, and then maybe you try another one. Communities like Herd, the bookkeeping and accounting service, offer this kind of community. A lot of places do. And then maybe you try another one or come back to your favorite. The point is, find a way to learn how to run your business well, how to be smart about it, how to use best practices. Don't waste time figuring it out all by yourself in your living room, in your PJ pants. Okay, so we've gone through the 5 keys to running a thriving solo practice. We talked about reverse engineering the business before you open by knowing what you need to earn annually. We talked about choosing the business model that will earn you the income that you need. We talked about being realistic about the sessions that you can do in a year. We talked about designing a practice that gives clients what they want. And lastly, we talked about not doing it all by yourself. So if you take one thing away from this episode, let it be this. I want you to feel so satisfied in solo practice and to be earning a lot more than $53,000 a year. I want you to build a serious business designed to support your real life for years to come. That's where you'll find sustained independence and freedom. You know, that stuff that drew you to solo practice in the first place. So let's build this for the long haul and let's do it together. Thank you so much for joining me today. I'm your host, Melissa Schneider. Joe Sanok, the creator of this podcast, has been generous enough to give me a monthly show. So look out for more episodes from me, exploring the biggest trends in our industry, digging into the numbers, and always zeroing in on practical tips for how you can thrive in your solo or group practice. If you want to consult with me about anything practice related, head on over to practiceofthepractice.com/apply to get connected and find out if consulting is right for you. For any comments about this episode or ideas of what you'd like me to go over on the show, shoot me an email, melissa@practiceofthepractice.com. And then lastly, I want to say a big thank you to our sponsors of today's show.
Alma is our sponsor today. A year from today, what would your dream practice look like? Are you spending time chasing claims? Are you in network? Are you out of network? Are you dealing with all sorts of different things? Alma believes that therapists, when they get the support they need, better mental health happens for everyone. You can learn more about Alma over at helloalma.com. Your dream practice is closer than you think. Again, that's helloalma.com, and I forgot to say /Joe. So helloalma.com/Joe. They'll help with the billing. They'll help with just making it easier for you to run all the scheduling and documentation within your practice. Thank you so much for letting me into your ears and into your brain. Have a wonderful day. I'll talk to you soon. Special thanks to the band Silence is Sexy for that intro music, and this podcast is designed to provide accurate and authoritative information in regard to the subject matter covered. It is given with the understanding that neither the host, the producers, the publishers, or guests are rendering legal, accounting, clinical, or other professional information. If you want a professional, you should find one.